Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship with his old duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Gateway Station buzzed with activity around him. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds moved through the massive terminal, heading to ships or coming from them. Some had tentacles, others had scales, and a few looked almost human. Jake had seen it all before. He just wanted to get through security and catch his connecting flight to Mars. The line moved slowly. Jake stood behind a tall blue alien who kept shifting from foot to foot, nervous about something. In front of the alien, a human family argued about their luggage. Jake didn't mind the wait. He had learned patience the hard way, learned it in a place he tried very hard not to think about. Security at Gateway Station used the most advanced scanners in known space. The machines could detect weapons, diseases, and even hostile intentions by reading biological signatures. Jake had passed through similar scanners dozens of times since leaving Proxima 7. They always cleared him without issue. He stepped forward when his turn came. The scanner was a tall archway that hummed with energy. Jake walked through it like he had done so many times before. He expected the usual green light and the bored wave from the security officer. Instead, every alarm in the terminal went off at once. Red lights flashed throughout the corridor. Automated barriers slammed down, trapping Jake in a small space between the scanner and the main terminal. Heavy blast doors sealed the exits. The peaceful buzz of the crowd turned into screams and shouts as people ran for cover. Jake stood very still. He knew better than to move when security systems activated. He raised his hand slowly, showing he held no weapons. Through the transparent barrier, he could see security officers running toward him from every direction. The first to arrive was Alara Vex, the station's security chief. She was a Hexian, which meant she had 6 arms and could hold 6 different weapons at once. Right now, 4 of those arms pointed weapons at Jake. The other 2 worked controls on her wrist computer, trying to understand what had triggered the alarm. "Don't move," Alara commanded. Her voice came through speakers in the barrier, cold and professional. "I'm not moving," Jake said calmly. He had been through worse than this. Much worse. More security officers surrounded him. Jake counted at least 20 armed personnel, representing half a dozen different species. Whatever the scanner had detected, it had the entire security force on high alert. Jake could see confusion on their faces. They had weapons drawn, but they didn't seem to know what they were pointing them at. He looked like an ordinary human. His clothes were worn but clean. His bag contained nothing but spare clothes and a few personal items. Alara studied her wrist computer, her alien features showing clear confusion. She tapped several commands, then looked at Jake again. She tapped more commands. The confusion deepened into something that looked almost like fear. "What's it saying?" one of her officers asked, a young human with his weapon shaking slightly. Alara didn't answer immediately. She read the screen again as if hoping the words would change. Finally, she spoke, and her voice had lost its professional certainty. "The scanner is asking him a question." "Scanners don't ask questions," another officer said. "They just scan and report." "This one is asking a question," Alara insisted. She looked at Jake with new eyes, seeing him differently now. "It wants to know if he fought a god and survived." Silence fell over the security team. Even through the barrier, Jake could feel their stares. Some of the officers lowered their weapons slightly, uncertain if weapons would even matter. The young human officer laughed nervously. "That's impossible. It must be a malfunction." Alara pulled up more data on her screen. Her face went pale, which was impressive for a Hexian. Their blood was normally dark purple, but Jake could see the color draining away. "His cellular structure," she said quietly. "Every cell in his body shows signs of complete destruction and reconstruction. The pattern repeats hundreds of times. The scanner is reading scars at the atomic level." Station Director Kellen Brooks arrived, running despite his age and the dignity of his position. He was a human diplomat who had served at Gateway Station for 15 years. He pushed through the crowd of security officers and stared at the scanner readout. "Dear God," Brooks whispered. Then he looked at Jake. "Who are you?" "My name is Jake Morrison," Jake said simply. "I'm an engineer from the Proxima colonies. I just want to catch my flight to Mars." "The Proxima colonies," Brooks repeated. His face showed recognition. "Which one?" Jake hesitated. He had hoped to avoid this conversation. "New Haven." Brooks's expression changed completely. He turned to Alara. "Get me a secure line to Earth military intelligence. Priority Alpha clearance. Tell them we have a Proxima 7 incident case at the station. What's Proxima 7? Alara demanded. What's happening? That's classified, Brooks said, but his hands were shaking. He looked at Jake again. You're him. You're the one from the reports. Jake said nothing. What could he say? The truth sounded insane. He had spent 5 years trying to leave it behind, trying to be normal again, but the scars went too deep. They weren't just on his body. They were written into every atom of his being, a permanent record of the day he died 847 times and kept coming back. Within minutes, the terminal was in full lockdown. Diplomatic representatives from the Collective Harmony, the alliance of alien species that shared this sector of space, began arriving. They demanded answers. Some looked at Jake with suspicion. Others looked at him with what might have been fear or respect. It was hard to tell with alien faces. Jake was moved to a holding cell, a small room with comfortable chairs but very thick walls. He sat down and waited. He had gotten good at waiting. When you fight for what feels like years in a space where time doesn't work right, you learn that patience is just another form of strength. Through the clear wall of his cell, he could see Alara and Brooks arguing with alien diplomats. Some wanted him handed over to the collective for questioning. Others insisted humans should handle their own people. The argument grew heated, with several species threatening to leave the alliance if they didn't get their way. Jake closed his eyes and tried not to remember. But memory was another thing the battle had changed. His mind worked differently now. He could remember every moment of that fight, every death, every resurrection. The memories were perfect and terrible, recorded in whatever part of him had been touched by something beyond normal existence. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, the door opened. A man in a military uniform walked in, older and hard-faced, with the bearing of someone who had seen combat. He carried a tablet and a cup of coffee, which he offered to Jake. I'm Colonel Benjamin Hayes, the man said. Military intelligence. I've read the classified reports from New Haven, all 17 pages of redacted impossibility. He sat down across from Jake. Everyone outside wants answers. The aliens are scared. The diplomats are confused. My superiors are demanding explanations, he paused. But I just want to hear it from you. Tell me what really happened on Proxima 7. Jake took the coffee. It was hot and bitter and normal. The most normal thing that had happened since he walked through that scanner. He looked at the colonel and saw something he recognized. This was a man who understood that some truths were too strange for official reports. It started 2 years into the colony, Jake began. We found ruins. The colonel leaned forward and Jake Morrison began to tell the story he had kept silent for 5 years. The story of the day he challenged a god. Colonel Hayes dismissed everyone from the observation room. 3 different alien ambassadors protested, but the colonel stood firm. This was human business, he insisted, and they would get their answers when he was ready to give them. The aliens reluctantly agreed to watch through remote monitors instead. When the room finally held only Jake and the colonel, Hayes pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. It hummed softly, creating a privacy field that would block all recording devices. Now, Hayes said, tell me about Proxima 7. Tell me about New Haven. Jake wrapped his hands around the coffee cup, feeling its warmth. It helped him focus on something real and solid. New Haven was supposed to be perfect. The planet had Earth-like gravity, breathable air, plenty of water. We were the first colony, 2,000 people ready to build a new world. I've read the initial reports, Hayes said. Everything went well for the first 2 years. It did, Jake confirmed. We built homes, farms, and schools. We started families. I was a mining engineer, working on extracting rare metals from the northern mountains. The work was hard but good. We thought we had found paradise. Jake paused, remembering those days before everything changed. He had been happy then, in a simple way he would never be again. Then we found the ruins, he continued. They were buried deep beneath the mountains, older than anything we had ever seen. The science team estimated they were millions of years old, maybe older. The structures were made from materials that shouldn't exist according to our physics. Hayes leaned forward. What did you find inside? A temple, Jake said. At least that's what we called it. It was a massive chamber carved from a single piece of impossible stone. The walls showed images of beings we couldn't understand, shapes that hurt to look at. In the center was a seal, a circular design made of light and shadow mixed together. And someone broke the seal. Dr. Helen Carter, Jake said, remembering the lead archaeologist's excitement. She thought it was a storage device, a time capsule left by an ancient civilization. She used a laser to try to read the symbols. He looked down at his coffee. She was wrong. The memory came back with perfect clarity. Jake had been in the temple that day helping set up equipment. He remembered the moment the laser touched the seal. The light changed. The shadows moved wrong. Reality itself seemed to bend and crack. The ground started shaking, Jake said. Not like an earthquake. Like the planet itself was afraid. The seal shattered and something came out. Jathan, Hayes said quietly. Jake looked up sharply. You know the name? It's in the classified reports. Just the name, nothing else. The rest is redacted so heavily that the pages are mostly black ink. Jake nodded. The name is the easy part. Describing what it was, that's harder. Imagine something that exists in more dimensions than you can see. Imagine a being that thinks in concepts our brains can't process. Jathan was old when the universe was young. It had been sealed away for reasons we never learned. And it was angry, Hayes guessed. Worse than angry. It was disappointed. We were like ants that had wandered into a cathedral and knocked over the altar. Jathan said we had violated sacred ground. As punishment, it would erase us. Not just kill us. It would remove us from the timeline itself. Make it so we had never existed. Hayes sat back. That's impossible. I've learned that impossible just means you haven't seen it yet, Jake said. Jathan started to raise its hand, or what I perceived as a hand. I could feel reality beginning to unwrite itself. Some of the colonists were already fading, becoming transparent. So what did you do? Jake almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. I did the stupidest thing possible. I challenged it to a fight. The colonel stared at him. You challenged a god to a fight. I remembered something from ancient human history. The right of trial by combat. If someone was accused of a crime, they could demand to fight for their innocence. I figured if this thing was old enough to have temples, maybe it was old enough to understand ancient laws. And it accepted? It was amused, Jake said. I could feel its amusement like pressure in my head. It said yes, it would accept a champion, but the fight wouldn't just be physical. It would take place across multiple planes of existence. I would have to fight with my body, my mind, my will, and my soul all at once. Jake stood and walked to the window. Outside he could see the stars, peaceful and distant. They looked so different now than they had before the fight. I accepted, he continued. I didn't think I could win. I just hoped that fighting would buy time. Maybe someone could get a message out. Maybe another ship would come and save the others. But you did win, Hayes said. No, Jake corrected. I didn't win. I just refused to lose. There's a difference, he turned back to face the colonel. The fight started on the physical plane. Jathan appeared as a being of light and geometry. It touched me, and my body exploded into atoms. I should have died right there. But you didn't. I couldn't, Jake said. Something in me, some part of human stubbornness, refused to stop existing. My consciousness grabbed those atoms and pulled them back together. I reformed myself from pure will. Hayes was silent, processing this impossible claim. That happened 847 times, Jake continued. Jathan would destroy me. I would rebuild myself. On the mental plane, it showed me horrors that would drive most beings insane. I saw the end of everything. The death of stars, the silence after the last thought in the universe faded. But I kept fighting. How? Hayes asked. How did you survive that? Jake thought about the question. He had asked himself the same thing many times. Humans evolved on Earth. Our planet tried to kill us with ice ages, diseases, predators, and 1,000 other threats. But we survived. That survival instinct runs deep in our DNA. When Jathan pushed me to break, something ancient in me pushed back. Each time I died and reformed, I learned. My body adapted. My mind expanded. I started to understand the dimensions we were fighting in. I couldn't beat Jathan, but I could match it. I could stand my ground. Jake returned to his chair. The fight lasted hours in real time, but years for me. Finally, Jathan stopped. It looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt something I never expected. Respect. It let you win. It declared me an equal, Jake said. It said I had earned the right for my people to exist, not through victory, but through refusing to surrender. Jathan removed the death sentence from the colony. Then it left, returning to wherever it came from. And you? I collapsed. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. When I woke up, everything had changed. My body was different. My mind worked differently. The doctors said I was human, but I could tell they weren't sure. The colony kept everything secret. They gave me an honorable discharge and made me promise never to talk about what happened. Jake finished his coffee. I tried to go back to normal life. I moved to Mars, got a job, met someone. For 5 years I pretended I was just another engineer. But these scars don't go away. Every cell in my body remembers dying 847 times. Colonel Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his tablet and began typing. I'm going to need to verify this story. I know, Jake said.
Check New Haven's records.
Talk to Father Luis Martinez. He was there. He saw everything. The colonel nodded and stood. Wait here. This is going to take some time to sort out. As Hayes left the room, Jake leaned back in his chair. The story was out now. For better or worse, people knew what he had done. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about what came next. Because he knew that once the universe learned about a human who fought a god, everything would change. The investigation moved quickly. Colonel Hayes had resources that most people could only imagine. Within 6 hours, he had confirmation from 3 separate sources. The colony records from New Haven checked out. Father Luis Martinez verified every detail of Jake's story. Most convincing of all, satellite footage from that day showed something that made hardened intelligence officers go pale and silent. Jake sat in his holding cell and waited. They brought him food, which he ate without tasting. They offered him entertainment, which he declined. He simply sat and watched the stars through the window, thinking about Amy waiting for him on Mars. She thought he was on a simple cargo run. She had no idea her boyfriend had once fought a god. Dr. Peter Grant arrived at the station 12 hours after the incident. He was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms, but his real specialty was stranger than that. He studied beings that shouldn't exist according to normal science. When Colonel Hayes called him about Jake, he caught the first military transport to Gateway Station. Grant entered the holding cell carrying enough scanning equipment to fill 3 bags. He was young for a doctor, maybe 40, with the excited energy of someone who had just found the most interesting puzzle in the universe. Mr. Morrison, Grant said, setting up his equipment. I need to scan you. Is that all right? Jake nodded. Will it hurt? No more than what you've already been through. Grant activated the first scanner. This is remarkable. The security scanner wasn't wrong. Your cellular structure is completely unique. Every cell contains quantum entanglements that span multiple dimensions. In simple terms, Jake asked. Grant looked up from his equipment. You exist in several places at once. Most of you is here in our normal dimension, but parts of you extend into spaces that shouldn't be accessible to living matter. It's like you're a bridge between worlds. That sounds bad. Bad? No, impossible, yes, but not bad. Grant ran another scan. Your DNA has been rewritten by forces we can't fully measure. But you're stable. Your body has adapted to its new state. In fact, you're healthier than most humans I've scanned. Jake found that darkly amusing. He had died 847 times and come back healthier. The scars the scanner detected, Grant continued. They're rifts in space-time at the microscopic level. Every time you died and reformed, you left a mark on reality itself. You're covered in them from your skin to your bones to your brain. Can they be removed? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. No. They're part of you now. They're not injuries exactly. They're more like signatures. Evidence of where you've been and what you've survived. Grant paused his scans and looked at Jake directly. You understand what this means, don't you? You're living proof that humans can survive things that should be absolutely fatal, that we can adapt to forces that would destroy other species. I'm not special, Jake said. I just got stubborn. That stubbornness is the most special thing about humans, Grant replied. Other species, when faced with certain death, accept it. Humans fight. We always fight. While Grant continued his examination, the political situation outside Jake's cell was getting complicated. The Collective Harmony had called an emergency council meeting. Representatives from 17 different species gathered to discuss what Jake's existence meant for the balance of power in the galaxy. The Drellian ambassador spoke first. The Drellians were the military powerhouse of the Collective, a species of warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. Their ambassador was a tall being with armor-like skin and 4 eyes that could see into the infrared spectrum. This human represents a threat, the Drellian said. If one human can fight a deity-class entity, What prevents others from developing the same capability? Humans could become unstoppable. Or they could become valuable allies, countered the Vryn representative. The Vryn were philosophers and warriors, a species that valued honor above all else. My people have legends of mortals who challenged gods. We call them scar-bearers. They are revered, not feared. Your legends are stories, the Drellian snapped. This is real. This human has power that could destabilize everything. Station Director Kellen Brooks tried to keep the peace. Jake Morrison is one person. He hasn't shown any hostile intent. He just wants to go home. And if he goes home, he could be studied, replicated, turned into a weapon, another ambassador argued. The debate went on for hours, growing more heated. Some species wanted Jake imprisoned for the safety of the galaxy. Others wanted him free, arguing that punishing someone for surviving was unjust. The Vryn offered him sanctuary on their homeworld. The Drellians threatened to leave the collective if he wasn't contained. Colonel Hayes watched the debate from the observation deck, his face unreadable. He had orders from Earth to protect Jake, but he also understood the aliens' concerns. A human who could fight gods changed everything. It would shift the balance of power, make enemies out of nervous allies, and if Earth tried to create more like Jake, it could start a war. In the medical bay, Dr. Grant finished his scans. He sat down across from Jake, looking troubled. There's something else, Grant said. Your body is still changing. Whatever happened to you on Proxima 7, it's not over. You're evolving, adapting to your new state. I can see the changes in your cellular structure. What does that mean? Jake asked. I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe you'll develop new abilities. Maybe you'll become something more than human. Grant packed up his equipment. But I can tell you this, you're not a threat. Your body is stable. Your mind is sound. You're just different. Different enough to scare people. Different enough to change human history, Grant corrected. Like it or not, you're important now. You're proof of what humans can become. Before Jake could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Not the same alarms from before. These were different. These were the alarms that meant something was approaching from deep space. Colonel Hayes rushed to the command center. The station's long-range sensors had picked up an object moving toward them at impossible speed. It wasn't broadcasting any identification. Its energy signature matched nothing in any database, and it was coming from the direction of Proxima 7. Alara Vex pulled up the sensor data, her 6 arms working multiple controls simultaneously. Whatever it is, it's big. And it's slowing down. It's going to stop right at our docking port. Is it a ship? Brooks asked. I don't think so, Alara said. It's not moving like a ship. It's moving like something alive. The object appeared on the main view screen. It looked like a space where normal rules didn't apply. Light bent around it. Stars behind it appeared in the wrong positions. Looking at it too long made people's eyes hurt. A message came through on all frequencies, broadcast in every known language simultaneously. The voice that spoke made reality ripple and bend. People who heard it felt the words in their bones, in their thoughts, in places that didn't have names. I am Jathon, the voice said. I have come to speak with the mortals of this place. I bring a message for those who call themselves the Collective Harmony. Bring forth my equal, the one you call Jake Morrison. We have matters to discuss. The command center fell silent. Every species present understood what they were hearing. A god had come to Gateway Station, and it was asking for the human who had fought it. Colonel Hayes looked at the view screen, then at the holding cell monitors showing Jake. The engineer sat calmly, as if he had been expecting this. Get him to the council chambers, Hayes ordered. If a god wants to talk, we don't keep it waiting. Jake was escorted from his cell by a full security team, though everyone knew the weapons they carried would be useless if Jathon decided to attack. He walked through corridors filled with frightened people, past aliens who stared at him with expressions ranging from terror to awe. In the council chambers, representatives from 17 species waited, armed guards at every door. At the center of the room, space itself was bending, making room for something that shouldn't fit in 3 dimensions. Jake entered the chamber and saw Jathon manifesting in a form that mortal minds could comprehend. The entity appeared as a tall, robed figure whose features shifted between familiar and alien, between solid and transparent. Hello again, Jake said, his voice steady despite the fear he felt. I thought we were done. We are, Jathon replied, and the entity's voice was softer now, less terrible. I have come not for you, but for them. The being gestured at the assembled aliens. "I have come to deliver a message about humanity." The Drellian ambassador stepped forward. "Speak then. What message do you bring?" Jothon turned its attention to the alien, and the Drellian took an involuntary step back. "I bring a declaration," the entity said, "and a warning." Jothon stood at the center of the council chambers, and reality bent around it like light around a black hole. The assembled representatives of the collective harmony tried to maintain their dignity, but Jake could see fear in all of them. Even the Drellians, who claimed to fear nothing, kept their distance. "I have existed since before your species learned to make fire," Jothon began. Its voice was different now, less overwhelming but still impossible to ignore. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen empires span galaxies and collapse into dust. In all that time, across all those species, I have only once been challenged by a mortal." The entity gestured toward Jake. "This human stood before me and refused to die. He fought me across 7 dimensions. He died 847 times and returned 847 times. He did not win, but he did not lose. He simply would not stop." "We know this story," the Drellian ambassador said, trying to sound brave. "Why do you come to tell us what we already know?" "Because you do not understand what it means," Jothon replied. "This was not an accident. This was not luck. This human did what he did because his species has been shaped by the cruelest teacher in the universe: survival." The entity moved through the room, and people stepped back to give it space. "You come from kind worlds," it said to the assembled aliens. "Your evolution was gentle. Your planets gave you what you needed, but humans come from Earth, a world that tried to kill them at every turn. Ice ages, predators, diseases, their own violence. Yet they survived." Jake listened, uncomfortable with being discussed like a specimen, but he understood what Jothon was saying. Humans were stubborn because they had to be. "Give up on Earth and you died. I have come to make a declaration," Jothon announced. "Humanity is now under my protection. No member of the collective harmony may make war upon them. No species here may enslave them or seek to destroy them. This protection extends to their allies and their territories." The council chamber erupted. Multiple ambassadors shouted at once, their voices mixing into chaos. The Drellian ambassador pushed forward, his 4 eyes blazing with anger. "You cannot do this," the Drellian said. "You cannot give one species an unfair advantage. This violates every treaty, every law." "I am beyond your laws," Jothon said simply. "I make this declaration not as a favor, but as recognition of what this species has earned." One of them stood before me and refused to kneel. "That deserves acknowledgement." "This is outrageous," another ambassador protested. "If humans have divine protection, they can do whatever they want. They could attack us without fear of retaliation." "Then you misunderstand the declaration," Jothon said. "I protect humans from you. I do not protect them from themselves. If they become conquerors, if they become tyrants, that is their choice. But you will not destroy them for fear of what they might become." Colonel Hayes stepped forward. He was the only human in the room besides Jake, and he knew this moment would define Earth's future for centuries to come. "We don't want special treatment," Hayes said carefully. "We want to exist as equals among the stars. If your protection makes that impossible, if it turns every species against us, then it's not a gift. It's a curse." Jothon turned to look at the colonel, and Hayes stood firm despite the pressure of that attention. "You are wise, Colonel. But the declaration stands. What others choose to do with it is their decision." The Vryn representative spoke up, her voice calmer than the others. "Great, Jothon. My people respect what this human accomplished. We do not fear your declaration. But we must ask, what do you want in return? Such gifts always have a price." "Observant," Jothon said with what might have been approval. "Yes, there is a price. A warning that comes with the protection." The entity's form seemed to grow larger, filling more of the room. "Humanity must never seek to weaponize what happened to Jake Morrison. You must never attempt to create more like him. What he became was the result of unique circumstances that should never be repeated." Jake felt everyone's eyes turn to him. He understood what Jothon meant. Someone, somewhere, would want to replicate his abilities, turn him into a weapon, create an army of godfighters. "If humanity attempts to create artificial godfighters," Jothon continued, "I will return, not as a protector but as an executioner. I will erase your species from existence, and no one will remember you ever lived. This is not a threat. It is a promise." The room fell silent. The warning was clear and absolute. Humans could have protection, but only if they never tried to abuse what Jake had become. Do you understand? Jathan asked, looking at Colonel Hayes. The colonel nodded slowly. We understand. Earth will honor this condition. We won't attempt to weaponize Mr. Morrison or replicate his abilities. See that you don't, Jathan said, because I will know. I am watching humanity now. You have my attention for better or worse. The Drellian ambassador wasn't satisfied. And what of those of us who feel threatened by this arrangement? Are we supposed to simply accept that one species has divine favor? You may accept it or you may prove yourselves worthy of similar recognition. Jathan replied. Find one of your own who can stand before a god and refuse to fall. Then we may speak of equality. The challenge hung in the air. Every species present knew that no one among them could do what Jake had done. The Drellians were warriors, but their strength came from technology and numbers. The Vryn were honorable, but even their greatest fighters would have broken under the weight of divine power. Only humans, shaped by Earth's cruelty, had produced someone who could survive the impossible through sheer stubbornness. Jathan turned back to Jake. You are free to go, Scarbearer. Live your life as you choose. But know that you have changed everything. Other entities like me have heard your story. Some are curious, some are amused, some will want to test you themselves. Great, Jake muttered. Just what I wanted. You will never have the normal life you seek, Jathan said, and there was something like sympathy in its voice. But you will have something more important. You will have meaning. You have shown the universe that humans do not surrender. The entity began to fade, its form becoming transparent. I leave you with this final thought. You are not alone, Jake Morrison. There are others among the stars who have faced the impossible and survived. Perhaps one day you will meet them. Until then, carry your scars with honor. They are proof that you lived when you should have died. Jathan disappeared completely and reality snapped back to normal. The pressure in the room lifted. People could breathe freely again. But everything had changed. The Drellian ambassador glared at Jake and Colonel Hayes. This isn't over. You may have divine protection, but that won't make you friends. Many species will resent you for this. We didn't ask for this, Jake said tiredly. I just wanted to catch my flight to Mars. That flight will have to wait, Kellenbrook said. He looked exhausted, aged by the stress of the last hours. We need to process what just happened. Earth's government will want to speak with you. The military will want to debrief you. And every news organization in known space will want an interview. Jake sighed. He had feared this. His secret was out, and now he would never have peace again. But at least he was free. He wasn't going to be locked up or handed over to angry aliens. Colonel Hayes approached him. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You saved your colony and earned rest. Instead, you're getting dragged into galactic politics. Story of my life, Jake said. I survived the impossible, and somehow that makes everything more complicated. Dr. Grant appeared with his scanning equipment. We need to keep monitoring your condition. With Jathan's warning about not weaponizing you, we need to prove Earth is honoring that promise. Regular medical scans will help. Fine, Jake agreed. But can someone please contact my girlfriend? Amy thinks I'm on a cargo run. She's going to worry. We'll take care of it, Hayes promised. But Morrison, you need to understand something. Your life has changed forever. The galaxy knows about you now. Earth will protect you, but you'll always be watched. Always be important. Always be the man who fought a god. Jake looked around the council chamber at all the aliens staring at him with fear, respect, or resentment. He thought about Amy waiting on Mars, about the simple life he wanted, about the normal existence that was now impossible. I know, he said quietly. I've known since the day I woke up from that coma. The moment you challenge a god, you stop being normal. You become a story, and stories don't get to retire. So what will you do? Grant asked. Jake smiled, and there was something hard in that smile, something that had been forged in dimensions beyond normal space. What I've always done. I'll adapt. I'll survive. And if the universe wants to test me again, I'll show it the same thing I showed Jathan. Humans don't quit. Colonel Hayes nodded with approval. That's the spirit. Welcome to galactic politics, Morrison. Try not to start any wars. No promises, Jake replied. But I'll do my best. 3 days passed before Jake was finally cleared to leave Gateway Station. 3 days of debriefings, medical scans, and diplomatic meetings. 3 days of being treated like something between a hero and a nuclear weapon. He was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with his body and everything to do with his mind. Colonel Hayes arranged for a private transport to take Jake to Mars. The public didn't know his face yet, but that wouldn't last long. News of the incident had spread through official channels and leaks were inevitable. Soon everyone would know about the human who fought a god and got divine protection for his species. Try to enjoy the anonymity while you have it, Hayes said as they walked to the docking bay. Once your face hits the news feeds, your life will get even more complicated. I thought it couldn't get more complicated, Jake replied. You thought wrong. Hayes handed him a small communication device. This is a direct line to Earth military intelligence. If anything strange happens, if you sense something wrong, you call. We're not just protecting you, we're protecting Earth's relationship with the collective. Jake took the device and pocketed it. What about the Vryn offer? They wanted me to come to their homeworld, train with their warriors. That's your choice, Hayes said. Earth won't force you into anything. You've done enough. But the Vryn are good people. If you ever want to learn control to understand what you've become, they can help. They reached the docking bay where a sleek transport waited. Standing near the entrance was Alara Vex, the security chief who had first detained Jake. Her 6 arms were empty of weapons now, and her expression was different than before. Respectful, Mr. Morrison, she said, I wanted to apologize before you left. I treated you like a threat when you were just trying to get home. You were doing your job, Jake said. The scanner said I fought a god. That would make anyone nervous. Still, Alara insisted, you showed more patience than most would have. The Hexian people value strength, but we also value dignity under pressure. You have both, she extended one of her hands. Safe travels, Scarbearer. Jake shook her hand, surprised by the warmth of the gesture. Maybe not all the aliens would resent humanity's new status. Maybe some would respect it. The flight to Mars took 6 hours. Jake spent most of it looking out the window at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. He had left Mars 2 months ago as a normal engineer. He was returning as someone who had changed humanity's place in the galaxy. His communicator buzzed. A message from Amy. Jake, I heard you got delayed at Gateway Station. Are you okay? When will you be home? I miss you, he typed back. On my way now. Should arrive in a few hours. I miss you too. We need to talk when I get there. That was an understatement. How do you tell your girlfriend that you once died 847 times fighting a god? How do you explain that you're now under divine protection, and every alien in the galaxy knows your name? The transport landed at Mars Central Spaceport. Jake expected security issues, more scanners triggering more alarms. But Colonel Hayes had arranged for him to skip normal security. A private car waited to take him directly to his apartment in the residential district. Mars City sprawled beneath a protective dome, a mix of old Earth architecture and new Martian design. Jake had lived here for 3 years, trying to build a normal life after Proxima 7. He loved the red dust, the low gravity, the sense of being part of something new. His apartment was in a modest building, nothing fancy. He took the elevator to the 8th floor and stood outside his door, suddenly nervous. Amy was inside, waiting for him, unaware that everything was about to change. He keyed in the door code and entered. Amy rushed to him immediately, throwing her arms around him. She was shorter than him, with dark hair and eyes that always seemed to be smiling. She worked as a teacher, educating the children of Mars colonists. She was normal and kind and everything Jake wanted in his life. 2 months, she said, pulling back to look at him. You were supposed to be gone 2 weeks. I was so worried. I know, Jake said. I'm sorry. Things got complicated. Amy studied his face. She had always been good at reading him. What's wrong? You look different. Did something happen? Jake guided her to the couch. We need to talk. And you're going to think I'm crazy, but everything I'm about to tell you is true. He told her everything. The ruins on Proxima 7, the entity called Zothon, the fight across 7 dimensions, the 847 deaths and resurrections, the scars written into his atoms, the incident at Gateway Station, the divine protection for humanity. Amy listened without interrupting, her expression changing from concern to disbelief to shock, to something that might have been fear or awe or both. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Show me something. Prove it's real. Jake held out his hand. He concentrated, reaching into the part of himself that existed in other dimensions. His hand became transparent for a moment, flickering in and out of normal space. It didn't hurt anymore. He had learned some control over the years. Amy gasped and pulled back. It's true. All of it. I'm sorry, Jake said. I should have told you before. But I wanted to be normal. I wanted us to be normal. Normal, Amy repeated. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. My boyfriend fought a god. How is anything supposed to be normal after that? I understand if you want to leave, Jake said quietly. My life is going to get complicated. Once the news breaks, I'll be famous, or infamous. People will watch me constantly. We'll never have privacy. Amy was quiet again, thinking. Jake prepared himself for her to leave. It would hurt, but he would understand. Who would want to date someone who had divine attention? Finally, Amy spoke. When we met, you told me you were just an engineer. Boring, you said. But I always knew there was something more to you. Something in your eyes that had seen things you wouldn't talk about. She took his hand, the one that had just flickered through dimensions. I don't care that you fought a god. I care that you came back, that you're sitting here with me now. Relief flooded through Jake. You're staying? I'm staying, Amy confirmed. But you have to promise me something. No more secrets. If the universe tries to kill you again, I want to know about it. Deal, Jake said, pulling her close. For the first time in days, he felt like he could breathe. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the Martian sunset through the apartment window. The sun turned the red landscape orange and gold, beautiful in its alien way. Jake's communicator buzzed again. A message from Dr. Grant. Monitoring your biometric data. Everything looks stable. But I'm detecting unusual energy readings near Mars, probably nothing, but stay alert. Jake deleted the message and tried to relax. Probably nothing. That's what people always said before something happened. 2 weeks passed. Jake returned to his job at the engineering firm, trying to maintain normalcy. His coworkers knew something had happened, but official channels were keeping the details classified. There were rumors, whispers, but nothing concrete yet. Then the news broke. Someone leaked the story to the press. Within hours, every news organization in human space was running the headline, Human fights God and wins, earns divine protection for humanity. Jake's face was everywhere. His apartment was surrounded by reporters. His communicator exploded with messages from people he hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted a piece of the man who fought a god, Colonel Hayes called. I'm sorry, Morrison. We tried to keep it quiet, but someone talked. You need to decide how to handle this. We can offer you protection, a safe house, new identity if you want it. Jake looked at Amy, who sat beside him holding his hand. No, he said. No hiding. If I'm going to be a symbol, I'll do it on my terms. Set up a press conference. I'll tell my story once properly, and then I'm done talking about it. You sure? Hayes asked. I stood before a god and refused to kneel, Jake said. I can handle some reporters. The press conference was held at Mars Central Plaza. Thousands attended in person. Millions watched remotely. Jake stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd, and told his story. He spoke simply and honestly about Proxima 7, about Jathan, about the fight and the cost. I'm not a hero, he concluded. I'm just someone who refused to give up. That's what humans do. We survive, we adapt. We keep fighting even when the odds are impossible. Jathan recognized that, and that's why humanity has protection now. Not because we're special, but because we earned it. The crowd applauded. Questions came rapid fire, but Jake answered only a few before leaving. He had said what he needed to say. Walking back to his apartment with Amy and a security escort, Jake felt something shift. A presence at the edge of his awareness, something vast and distant but watching. He had felt this before in the weeks after fighting Jathan. You feel it too? Amy asked quietly. Jake nodded. She was more perceptive than he had realized. Other entities. They're curious about me. About us, is that bad? I don't know yet, Jake admitted. But I know this, humanity isn't alone anymore. We've been noticed. What we do next will determine whether that's a blessing or a curse. They reached the apartment as the sun set again over Mars. Jake looked up at the stars, seeing them differently than before. Somewhere out there, beings older than time were watching, some with approval, some with hostility, all with interest. His communicator buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown